Hello and welcome to another webinar with Leslie and Duncan. We're going to continue talking about penalties because
everybody loves penalties.
Everybody loves penalties, except for the officials, the athletes, the competition jury. But if we do our job properly, then there'll be nothing to complain about. So what we want to make sure is that no athlete gains an unfair advantage and that we assess the penalties as fairly as we can.
So in these next couple of slides, we're going to show you things like the drafting infringements, also other infringements like start and swim, where they served, bike segment, transitions, and the run. So the athletes who are given a time penalty, they have the option. It's up to them to decide whether to stop at the penalty box and serve the penalty or continue to the finish. Okay, not stopping will result in a disqualification on crossing the finish line, and then it's up to the athlete to decide whether they want to appeal against the penalty, and only then will evidence be made available to the athlete if an appeal is filed. Remember, competition jury cannot make any time changes. Only those changes can be made by the ITU arbitration jury or CAS.
And CAS is the Court of Arbitration for Sport that's housed here in Lausanne, Switzerland. And so that's something that we don't necessarily
want to avoid that.
Yeah, we want to avoid that.
Switzerland is lovely, but we really don't want to be making too many trips back.
Fair enough. Is this me?
No, this is me.
Okay.
So again, we have a time penalty, which is served in our transition area. Yeah. Our technical official, they will hold a yellow card to the penalised athletes as soon as they arrive to his or her position. Once the athlete is stopped in his or her transition space without touching any of their equipment, then and only then will the technical official start the timing. If the athlete touches or removes any of their equipment during this time, the technical official will ask them to stop touching the equipment, and only then will they start timing again. Otherwise, the timing is paused. Once the athlete complies, and has completed their 10-second, 15-second, or whatever the penalty is, the technical official says go, and the athlete can continue away.
So that was a time penalty that's served in transition. What I want to talk to you now about is a time penalty that's served for the bike. So no numbers are displayed at the bike penalty box. The penalized athlete knows that they have to go into the penalty box because a technical official has stopped them on the course and given them the penalty, not stopped them, but shown them a card.
The dreaded blue card.
Yeah, the blue card if it's a drafting penalty. And so the athlete will go to the next penalty box, dismount their bike, and inform the technical official of their race number so that the technical official knows what the penalty is that's going to be served and how long that penalty will be. So they might have more than one penalty that they have to serve at that time. And the color of the card, as you said, if it's
blue for drafting, yellow for all other infringements.
Okay, so it could be a littering penalty, which would give a different time penalty that would be served. So the time penalty starts when the athlete complies with all of the above, ends with the technical official saying, go, you're ready to go on your way. If the athlete leaves the area, the technical official can ask them to return and the time will be paused. Once the athlete complies, then the count will continue. So if you have an early starter on the time penalty, then you might have to get them back into that bike penalty box. They can only consume food or water that's on them or their bike, but they're permitted from using the washroom at that time. So until their penalty is served, and they can't make any adjustments to their bike or fix anything on their bike until the penalty has been served.
But they can go to the restroom and then serve the penalty.
Yes.
That's okay.
That's
just
their
clear
choice.
that one up.
But it's not during the time penalty. Yeah. They can't use that time to do those things.
Okay. And then moving when we come to a run penalty, or penalties rather served in the run area, the athlete's number will be shown clearly displayed on the board, and then it's up to the athlete to decide when to come in and serve their penalty. So the penalised athlete comes into the penalty box, conforms with all the things which you said earlier on as regards to transition area, and once that time has elapsed and you're happy with it, then the official says go, and the athlete is free to continue for the rest of the race. If the athlete leaves the area in between though, the athlete or the technical official will ask the athlete to return, and the time will be paused until the return, and then start the count again until we've completed the full time that's elapsed as part of their penalty. Once the penalty's been served, remember we need to remove the board, or the number from the board. Don't leave the number up on there again for the poor athlete. Okay. And again, as we said earlier on, the athlete can serve it on any lap of the run. They don't have to come in on the first, second. It's entirely up to themselves. For our relay events, the penalty may be served by any member of the team who's not completed their portion of the event. And penalties must be posted on the board before the athlete completes the first half of the run. And posting penalties after this time, they're invalid.
Yeah, so in that previous webinar, we showed you when you had to post that run penalty for it to count. So it has to be depending on the number of laps that that particular course holds. So the way that the athlete knows what the penalty is for is that they'll see a letter next to their name, and so the letters symbolize where that penalty has occurred or what that penalty is for. So a D is a dismount line violation, E is equipment outside the box, S is swim conduct, L is littering, M is a mount line violation, and for all other violations you would put up a V.
Is this so they can decide whether they've actually committed a penalty in that area or not to decide whether to stop?
Yeah, so if they know for sure that they did whatever it was that they think correctly, then they can choose not to stop at the penalty box and deal with it after the disqualification has happened. So for severe penalties, we have disqualifications, we have suspensions, and we have expulsions. But all athletes have the right of appeal, and they could be reinstated. But best not to get into this situation. So hopefully the athletes understand and know the rules as well as the technical officials, and they don't make any infringements.
We can hope.
We can hope. Fingers crossed. Thank you very much for joining us for this webinar. We'll see you at the next one.